Joshua e o Robert têm uma experiência única para contar para nós. São dois moradores do bairro de Chelsea, em Nova York, que se encontram numa reunião da comunidade do bairro para discutir o futuro de uma linha de trem abandonada que percorria o bairro deles. 10 anos depois, com uma articulação política, comunitária e com a iniciativa privada, eles conseguiram criar a Fundação dos Amigos do Highline e criar o Parque do Highline, que hoje é um equipamento público de Nova York, com um número de visitação absolutamente impressionante. Eu acho que essa história é um exemplo para nós, acho que é uma referência para a arquitetura e para o urbanismo mundial, e ninguém melhor do que eles para contar isso.
This is what I first saw when we started this. I lived in the neighborhood, and what I fell in love with was the steel structure, just this industrial relic from the history of New York that was still in the neighborhood. But I didn't think that much of it until I read an article in the summer of '99 that said it was going to be demolished, that they were going to tear it down. And I assumed someone must be working to preserve it, and I could help out. And I heard it was on the agenda of a community board meeting. Community boards are sort of the first level of government in New York City. And so I went to this meeting, and I happened to sit next to Josh, who I didn't know at the time. And neither of us had any experience in this. I was involved, a part-time artist, and worked for internet startups, and Josh was a travel writer. And at the end of the meeting, we went up to each other because we were the only two people that were interested in it. Most people either didn't care or wanted to tear it down. So I said, well, why don't we start something together? And that's how Friends of the Highline began. And then we went up there. We'd never been up there before the meeting. And this is what we found. Basically, 1.5 miles of wildflowers running right through the middle of the city. So we did a ideas competition. This is one of our favorite winners for many reasons. A mile-long lap pool that would cut through the middle of Manhattan. And we had 720 entries from all over the world. This was an entry from Russia. This was a political manifesto where you put a park on the top, you imprison people in the I-beams of the High Line, and then there's a pool below. This is, I think, playing on the High and High Line. And this is interesting because this isn't really about design, but this is about program. So what are people going to do in and around the High Line? And this is what's proven to be very important. It's the design is critical, but also what happens in and around it. This was our other favorite, was a urban roller coaster, where you could go zoom up, look in people's bedrooms, and then zoom down. It would be perfect for São Paulo. Y'all should take this idea since we didn't use it.
So with political support on board, and we'd figured out a way to address the needs of the underlying property owners, a lot of our regulatory approvals began to move forward, and it was time to actually begin the design process for actually designing and building the High Line. And I always like to start with this image because I think it illustrates really well the central challenge of what designing a public environment on the High Line was, which was there was this gorgeous self-created landscape that was up there that had been created by natural forces, seeds being brought in by birds or falling off the trains, landing on the gravel ballast of the tracks, and creating this beautiful green ribbon running through the city. But as soon as you brought people up there, even a group as small as this, large areas of it would become completely trampled down. And you knew that if you just opened the High Line to the public, the thing that you loved about it most would be completely destroyed. And it also wasn't safe for public access. So that was, as we started a design competition, that was the central challenge that we laid out for design teams who wanted to compete. How do you create an environment on the High Line that's reflective of this amazing natural self-created landscape that was made, that really embodies the power of nature to overtake a monumental man-made structure and still make it safe and viable for a large number of the public to come up there?
It's created already $2 billion in new developments up and down the line. So when we started, we thought the High Line would get about 300,000 people, 300,000 visitors a year. That's how much a mid-sized cultural institution gets in New York, like the Whitney or the Guggenheim Museum. Last year, we had 4.5 million visitors come on the High Line. This is just to give you an example of sort of how that compares. So we had almost 2 million more visitors than MoMA last year.
So besides maintaining and operating the very special environment we've created up there, the other central thing that we do is programming. As we transition from an organization that's been primarily about saving a historic structure and building a park on it into an organization that has a facility to maintain, one of the things we're really increasing our focus on is programming. We're doing over 450 different programs a year. This is a salsa dancing party that we do 4 times each summer. We have a lot of children's programs. This is one that was of a workyard kit that was interactive play designed specifically around industrial elements that were inspired by the High Line. We have an education program that brings over 3,000 New York City public school children up to the High Line every year and teaches them on lesson plans that are inspired by various aspects of the High Line: horticulture, architecture, and industrial history.
But a lot of these things Josh and I have talked about are things that we put together, the things that we think should be on the High Line. To me, the real success of the High Line is that people in the city use it how they want to use it. When we first opened Section 1, we accidentally had one of our lights shining into a woman's apartment, into her bedroom. And she called us and complained, and we didn't do anything right away. So she decided to make the best out of the situation and got a friend of hers that was a cabaret singer to stand on her fire escape and serenade people on the High Line. And it became known as the High Line Renegade Cabaret, and it would happen, a few times every week until the fire department ultimately decided that's not how you're supposed to use your fire escapes. But, to me, it's just an example of the way that the city takes hold and can change things in ways that you would never expect, and that's, to me, the real magic of the High Line. Thank you all.
We thought that this would actually be special for the High Line, which was not a traditional project. There was an unsure classification early on in the beginning. They didn't even know if it was going to be a park and go through the New York City Parks Department, if it was going to be a pedestrian overpass and go through the Department of Transportation, if it was going to be a building or a structure and go with the Department of Buildings. And it also informed the sort of choreography of the High Line, which was, always meant to be this immersive experience and sort of episodic walk, surreal journey in the city, but at the same time that it was perceived as a single entity, we wanted it to also have a number of unique punctuations or features that responded to local conditions. So it's important to remember that the notion of keep it was not a given when we started. There were many proposals that wanted to demolish all or portions of the High Line, and others that wanted to completely transform it. And early on in the process, we developed this mantra, which sort of stayed with us throughout the entire design: keep it simple, keep it wild, keep it quiet, keep it slow. And they were sort of grouped in some areas where we had space to create very social situations, and they were much more sort of intimate, personal situations in other places. Probably one of the greatest things about the peel-up is how it's been used in ways we could have never imagined. Everybody finds a sort of new way to use the peel-up bench. There were other seating elements that we designed that looked at, how we could sort of do something different with the High Line structure itself. These are a series of chaise lounges that you could actually move if you wanted to be closer to your neighbor, if you wanted to be farther away. We had these sort of large sofas that were designed, and I think we had an original rendering where we showed someone in a bikini next to someone kissing, and everyone said, that's never going to happen up there, but this is actually a real image. Is this idea, and it really is a statement. This is at the 10th Avenue Square. In a world where sort of everyone's always on the go and on the move and on their phones and always available, I mean, this is a place where people are literally sort of doing nothing. They're literally just watching the traffic, and it's something that has become mesmerizing and something that you sort of have to do if you come to the High Line.
Resposta sobre essa pergunta que você fez, eu diria o seguinte: a gente vive hoje um momento de revisão, né, do modelo urbano-industrial das cidades, e isso se chama hoje de contemporâneo, né, numa cidade pós-industrial, numa cidade de serviços. Recentemente morreu, acho que todo mundo viu pela imprensa, o grande crítico americano de esquerda Marshall Berman, que escreveu muito bem sobre isso, né? Inclusive, sobretudo, a propósito das transformações da cidade de Nova York. Ele usa uma expressão que eu acho muito feliz, no caso, que ele chama de a tragédia do desenvolvimento, né? E a tragédia do desenvolvimento, ele figura na imagem de Robert Moses e, portanto, na contraposição com Jane Jacobs, a grande ativista americana, feminista dos anos 60, que eu acho que cuja ação talvez esteja na base de muito do que o Friends of Highline tem feito. Bem, o que eu quero dizer então aqui hoje, quer dizer, passado esse momento do desenvolvimento urbano industrial muito baseado no rodoviarismo, as cidades pelo mundo estão revendo esse legado, né, justamente em relação à discussão toda sobre a sustentabilidade e a vida na cidade, a recuperação de um modelo de vida na cidade como cidade densa, vertical, e que é exatamente o que nós defendemos. E o projeto do Highline, então, ele é um grande ícone do urbanismo do século XXI, nesse sentido, né? Sendo assim, ele ecoa muito para outros lugares do mundo, e eu acho que São Paulo é um lugar onde essa problemática está colocada. Portanto, ele é muito inspirador para nós desse ponto de vista. Agora, é claro que então a relação direta com o Minhocão se coloca, né, mas é preciso não ser literal, né, nesse sentido e entender todas as mediações que existem entre os dois exemplos, são muito diferentes. O Minhocão é uma estrutura que está em funcionamento para carros, né, atende a um grande fluxo da cidade. O Highline já era para trem de carga, abandonado já há muito tempo. Então, há aí uma série de diferenças, mas qual é o ponto mais interessante na aproximação, eu acho? Que o Minhocão, fruto de um ativismo cidadão mais recente na cidade, que é algo que está se tornando muito forte hoje em São Paulo, tem tido um uso muito interessante aos domingos como parque. Então, isso é um sinal, né, que eu acho que pode se alimentar muito do exemplo do Highline, sobretudo do ponto de vista do ativismo, né, de como envolver a sociedade na busca e na batalha por novos direitos de uso do espaço público. Então, se no modelo urbano industrial os espaços públicos foram sacrificados pelo rodoviarismo, é muito interessante hoje a revanche que possa haver, pegar as grandes infraestruturas de transporte rápido, de carros, sobretudo no caso do Minhocão, e sacrificá-los em nome do espaço público.
Abandonei o carro há 10 anos e comecei a viver a cidade sem carro. E tomei isso como uma motivação e como criar uma cidade mais amigável, com menos trânsito. Eu achei que as pessoas tinham que mudar o estilo de vida. E, para mim, a incorporação foi uma forma de mostrar uma ferramenta de colocar em prática uma série de ideias e como que a gente pode reinventar a vida das pessoas. Eu acho que São Paulo tem muito para melhorar e a incorporação do setor privado permite que nós puxamos a responsabilidade para nós mesmos de forma a executarmos uma cidade melhor. Eu acho que muitas pessoas, eu cansei de ouvir, não, porque a prefeitura aquilo, porque o setor público não realiza, mas as pessoas não puxam para si a responsabilidade para fazer acontecer. Eu acho que isso é um defeito, talvez, de nós, brasileiros, e eu acho que a gente tem que colocar as coisas mais em prática. Eu estava com algumas pessoas de fora, e nós aqui em São Paulo nós temos uma mania de falar, a gente passou na Paulista, aqui é o nosso Wall Street, aqui é Oscar Freire, é a nossa Rodeo Drive, aqui é o Ibirapuera, o nosso Central Park, mas cadê os ativistas brasileiros aqui em São Paulo? Onde estão as pessoas que estão mudando a cidade efetivamente? Cadê as pessoas que estão fazendo na prática o que pode ser uma São Paulo melhor? Em relação ao Minhocão, acho que é um problema aí que já foi amplamente discutido. Eu vejo que temos sim que tomar uma providência. Eu, particularmente, nós compramos 2 terrenos aqui naquela região, de frente para o Minhocão, e nós estamos, junto com o Secov e demais pessoas do setor privado, discutindo o que podemos fazer, independente se a prefeitura vai tomar alguma medida ou não, o que nós podemos para utilizar melhor aquele espaço, como podemos torná-lo melhor em uma série de aspectos, principalmente em relação à mobilidade. Eu acho que hoje um dos principais entraves é o impacto que ele vai causar no trânsito. Eu acho que demanda muito boa vontade, muito ativismo, e eu não tenho dúvida que dentro de alguns anos aquela região toda vai ser amplamente transformada e a gente vai ter um case muito similar, obviamente, adaptado para as necessidades de São Paulo, um projeto maravilhoso.